Hey, what's going on, guys? Tobin here with you. Thanks for checking us on out. Very exciting day, of course, for Heat Nation. Miami Heat making a move, going and getting Scary Terry. He has arrived. He has arrived in the 305. He boarded the Heat, posted a video of him arriving in South Florida. Still, I guess, officially a questionable decision because he needs to wait for both players. They need to wait for both players to report to their teams. Although it was interesting, apparently the Hornets general manager, Mitch Kupchak, had said that it's possible that he doesn't even play until the trade deadline passes. He said Kyle Lowry likely won't appear in a game. So I don't know, with him commenting on it and them wanting the flexibility, I don't know how much of a problem with like Kyle Lowry's physically in Charlotte. If he is, I don't know how much of that issue that's going to be for the league if the Hornets okay it. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. But he's officially listed as questionable, which makes me feel like we're going to see Terry Rozier make his debut against the Memphis Grizzlies. Obviously, at worst, you would think it would be against the Boston Celtics the next night that he'd have a home back-to-back coming on up. But he has arrived. He looked thrilled to get off that plane and said he was thrilled to be part of Heat culture and show everybody what the hype is all about, and that it was surreal. Hadn't hit him yet because this is home for him. You know, there's been a ton of great stories flying around about his admiration of D Wade. Talked a little bit about that in the initial trade video. Has to just be unbelievably cool for him. There was interesting stuff on where the Miami Heat stand with this asset that they did give up for Kyle Lowry. The Miami Herald writes, he says, the Heat owes a lottery protected first-round pick to Oklahoma City in 2025. If the Heat surprisingly misses the playoffs next season, the Thunder would get the 2026 Heat unprotected first-round pick instead of 2025, and then Charlotte would then get Miami's unprotected pick in 2028. So there's a rule in the NBA. You can't give up consecutive years of first-round picks. That's why it's, you know, so weird that the Heat can't give up 4 first-round picks because you can't give up consecutive years. Salary cap-wise, NBA-wise, they don't want big market teams just blowing their stack of assets. So that's where that stands on that. Mitch Kupchak did specify. It didn't sound like it. Now, this is, you know, a good GM who's going to try and hold his cards to the vest, but he did make it seem like they're okay with just having Kyle Lowry on their roster and just, you know, letting that contract expire. The thing they're most excited about was getting the asset for him. And Kupchak was just saying, you know, excited for the money to be freed up, be financially flexible, and that the pick itself is really what they were most excited about with this deal.
Just you mentioned earlier about Terry in the first round draft pick. Just wondering, from your perspective, the cap space potentially with Kyle Lowry in the draft pick, how does that help the franchise moving forward, do you think, beyond the season?
When you say the cap space, you mean cap space this summer?
That's what we mean, Mitch. Yes, that's what we mean. Let's get to
it. Yeah. Terry had, you know, a couple years remaining on his contract, and Kyle Lowry is an expiring contract. So, you know, that money will be freed up. It's always good to be, you know, flexible, you know, financially. It will help us this summer, and of course, it'll help us, you know, in the next couple of weeks to plan for this summer and beyond, just to know what our numbers are going to look like. And the pick itself, you know, has incredible potential for upside. So, you know, we don't know who that player may be, you know, several years out down the road, but an asset that valuable can also become, you know, something that you can put into a trade and make a deal. So, yes, the financial part of it, you know, was a part of it, but getting, you know, the pick was probably the most important part.
It's an interesting thing because, you know, the Heat had to do some of these moves for, you know, win now moves, and that's why they haven't been able to throw down this crazy amount of draft picks. They could have done some finagling, I guess, with OKC over the summer to get 3. But you look at something like this, and the Heat looking at this as a win now move, you know, they did have to attach this to get Kyle Lowry. They weren't just taking the financial flexibility. They wanted to get a win now move, and they did have to give up a first-round pick with Kyle Lowry to go. It wasn't just enough that they were going to get the financial flexibility. And there's a little bit of these bad teams are betting on the Heat are going to have a down year one year. And I'd imagine for them, everybody's kind of looking and eyeballing at Jimmy Butler and saying, well, how many more years does Jimmy Butler have of giving these guys elite basketball? Not saying the Heat aren't going to be able to reload. That's typically the Heat have had 1 year where they've 1 year over the last, since D Wade has been drafted, they had one time where they picked in the top 5. It's not very often that the catastrophic stuff does happen. Look at the Memphis Grizzlies with everything that they had to go through. So that's why the organizations go about this. And then you got to also look, I think for the Heat are at this interesting spot where, they are not getting reckless. We had the extension with Spo that was put down for 8 years out. So this is a trade. This is a pick that is 4 seasons from now. Pat Riley, will he still be here? He'll be 83, 84 at the time of that deal. I don't know. It's hard to imagine that Pat Riley is still going to be doing this at 84, but you can never rule out the Godfather, especially with the support system that the Heat do have in-house of everybody kind of being Riley guys anyway. So it's an interesting aspect to all of this. Now, the Heat, as far as the team was concerned and their reaction to this, gave you some of the quotes. I'll give you some sound here from practice today. There was an interesting part from Bam where, Bam Adebayo, I was listening to Bam and I was watching him. I'm like, man, Bam doesn't seem that thrilled. I was unaware. I read this in Barry Jackson's column because I wasn't at practice. I was on the air today with 560. And apparently Bam didn't really want to talk about the deal until the deal was official. Barry writes that Bam Adebayo, while declined to speak much about Rozier until the trade was officially announced, said acquiring another scorer would be more dynamic to our group, which makes more sense because, I was listen, I was why does he doesn't sound that thrilled about it. He sounds kind of nonchalant, and that's not typically Bam's style. Usually he's pretty upbeat about everything, but I will say he genuinely did sound like he is bummed that Kyle Lowry is gone, saying that he was one of his favorite teammates and he's going to miss him.
Kyle has been one of my favorite teammates, if not the favorite teammate since he's been here. He's always taught me ways to get the ball. He always talks about how to give me easy catches. And he's been positive towards me. He's been, I hang out with him in the summer. So he's like a brother to me. And, he'll continue to be my brother.
I just think that needs to be pointed out, with all of this stuff looming around Kyle. There's a couple of things that I wanted to clear up with Kyle Lowry, because I do feel like he was painted with a bit harsher of a brush than he really deserved. Now, I don't think he was playing very well, and I definitely think that there was some ruffled feathers and some hurt feelings going into this year with the whole role thing. But for one, Kyle Lowry did have some stuff that he was dealing with when he first got to Miami. He, I think it's been looked upon that he always kind of bucked what the Heat were about and getting in shape. Kyle Lowry was working off the UFC Performance Center and was getting himself in good shape. I just think that it wasn't I'm a grown man, I'm a professional, don't tell me what to do, I'll just do it. And some guys aren't like that. Not everybody needs the direction and the militaristic style all the time. But there was this one thing that was going around on Heat Twitter or Heat Instagram. And you know me, guys, I'm boots on the gram. I eat this stuff up, where it was claiming that Kyle Lowry had taken Heat out of his bio and that he had unfollowed Jaime Jaquez Jr. I think that the whole thing was complete bullshit. Kyle Lowry's going to be 38 years old. You think Kyle Lowry's doing the thing where he's erasing Heat? And by the way, as a telltale sign, if you guys want to know whether a person has taken this stuff out of their bio or not, you got to go look and see if they scrape the pictures. That's how you really know. If you scrape the pictures, and I was looking, he still has Heat pictures up here. He did not wipe anything from his Instagram account. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You didn't need to add more smoke where there was already a ton of fire with the Kyle Lowry is likely getting moved thing. It was just strange to me. So anyway, Bam's clearly, I think there was also a level of Bam maybe not wanting to be over eager on the Rozier thing because he does have a good relationship with Kyle, and I do think it's a little bittersweet for him. So we will see what this does bring when he does make his debut in the next couple of days. But you did have Kevin Love, and Kevin Love put it well where he said, like, listen, we needed the offensive punch this dude's going to bring.
It's huge. It's huge. But on top of that, I know that Terry is a competitor. Somebody's got to go out there every single game and fight. So it is, increasingly important and paramount to have a weapon and a scoring threat out there on the floor at really every position, but somebody who can put points up in a hurry. And with teams and offenses scoring so many points and offensive ratings continuing to go up, usage continuing to go up, and we had two guys score over 60, a guy scored 70 last night. It just goes to show you how important that is in this league now.
It's a good point by Kevin. Like, as much as this is an organization that wants to identify with defense, it is a scorers league and things can go crazy, and you can't have these lulls that they have been having in certain games, especially with how things can get sunk by the 3-point shot. But man, you saw yesterday, and with the Joel Embiid and the Karl Anthony Towns, and even Kevin Durant having a huge night. He had 43 points, and Giannis had 31, 17, and 11, and DeJounte Murray had 35 points. And I was like, man, I just don't feel like the Heat get those like epic nights from everybody. It's always, and there's beauty in the cohesion, there's beauty in the collective, but there is an element of, man, sometimes you just need your stars to take over. And to be clear, the Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler, like, they have that in the playoffs from him. But he's never scored 40 in a regular season game for the Miami Heat. His high is 38. He's never done it in the regular season with Miami. Now, he's done it a ton of times in the playoffs. He's done it 8 times. And in fact, with Jimmy Butler, 13 out of his top 15 playoff scoring performances are with the Miami Heat, including, of course, his 56-burger, his performance, 47 in the in TD Garden in Game 6 to make it a Game 7 2 years ago. But if you go to his top 15 performances in the regular season, the Miami Heat have 2 of Jimmy's top 15 scoring performances. That's kind of crazy. Bam's only got 140-point career game. Tyler has 1 in his career. So, and I'm not expecting Terry Rozier to go out there and give the Miami Heat 40, but to Kevin Love's point, like, this is a core, and with this top 3 guys of Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler, and specifically Jimmy and Bam, they've shown themselves to be absolutely quintessential playoff players, playoff performers. But in the regular season, you need every once in a while somebody to carry you, and they just haven't gotten those type of performances. Those especially in today's day and age, as the scoring becomes more vital. And so that's why I think this is really, really going to help Miami in a big, big way. The other piece of thing that I just wanted to touch on before I close out this video is the Bucks news, dude. Like, this was crazy. The Bucks fired their coach Adrian Griffin with a 30-13 record, which is just marvelous. Now, there was some rumblings that, like, people who watch the Bucks on a night-to-night basis, I'm not doing that, but have said, like, this guy did not seem like he knew what he was doing. There was a meme. I don't know if it was true or not, of Giannis, like, drawing up plays for them. But I gotta tell you, man, Damian Lillard just has to be looking at this circus. He goes, I cannot believe I ended up here. Like, yes, ended up with, okay, the best teammate I've had in Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it has been kind of a circus. He seems to get ripped all the time by Bucks fans on social media. The coach gets fired. His former coach was on the staff and got let go before the season. Now the current coach gets let go. Doc Rivers is going to take over apparently as the head coach. It was a delight to see that. Things in Bucks land seem to be quite screwed up. So just an interesting thing to keep an eye on with what they're going through in the whole landscape of the Eastern Conference. But I was like, what? What do you mean they fired? Like, that is like that. I mean, that had to be something to fire a guy. And apparently, like, oh, Giannis had lost respect for him in the middle of the year, even though this is the guy that he wanted. Which, by the way, I think that Jimmy and Adrian Griffin are kind of close. So just another thing to kind of keep an eye on with Team Petty on Jimmy Butler with his guy getting let go. I know that he had, made jokes about it, but he was making jokes because that's the guy that, he came up with in Chicago. So it's going to be some interesting fuel to add to the fire for Jimmy Butler v. the Bucks. And doesn't seem like, and by the way, you're adding Doc Rivers. Like, I mean, talking about like the most like cliche guy to go after when you think, oh, we have big names. Who do we need? Doc Rivers. Oh, he'll out scheme somebody. Like, what are we talking about? Like, Spo has basically waxed this guy every time he's taken him on in a series, except for like the like what Spo's second playoff series of all time when he had Dwayne Wade and Jermaine O'Neal. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the fallout is there in Milwaukee with all of this stuff. But damn, man, listen, this is why you had to make more of a stink, dude. And now Scary Terry's taking your stuff.